Scott McNair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Overall Podcast brought to you by the Scott McNair Law Firm. This is your co-host, David Vickner, along with my long-lost co-host, Brad Scott. Brad, I feel like you haven't been on this podcast in 17 years. Where have you been?
I was happy for the invite, David.
It's your podcast. Where have you been? The people demand your return.
I feel like our roads have not been crossing that often lately. It's been a busy time of the year, so it's good though. We're reconnecting.
And we're going to reconnect over what a topic. Prison break. I'm going to call the show today Prison Break. We have had...
Can we use that? I think that's trademarked for the TV show because Hollywood loves prison breaks.
There's also a movie, I think, a drama that when I was aggregating the articles and reading about this, I Googled, my Google keyword set was prison break, and the movie drama popped up from 2005. So I don't think that this is the first time that Hollywood has liked a prison break. But yeah, we've had 10 prisoners escape in New Orleans, in case anybody wasn't aware of that, in the Orleans Parish prison. I believe it was last Friday, so we're the Friday before Memorial Day now. Late in the
16th.
The 16th at 1 in the morning, 10 prisoners escaped from the Orleans Parish prison facility and, get this, ran across I-10 without being hit by a car, and miraculously...
I can't drive down I-10 without getting hit by a car. So that's probably the most amazing part of the story, that you actually dodged the vehicles.
I tend to agree with that because it's one of the more dangerous stretches of roadway in Louisiana.
And maybe, the situation the Saints are in, these might be some running back candidates. The way they were able to dodge these cars. We need all the help we can use this season coming.
Oh, man. Also still in shock that nobody was on the road at 1 in the morning and saw this and called 911. Just throwing that out there.
It's New Orleans. You expect to see stuff like that.
10 prisoners running across the 8-lane interstate and nobody called 911. Just throwing that out there. So they break out at 1 in the morning, 10 prisoners. I know that we'll be laughing a lot about this today, but it's really not a funny matter because, as you can imagine, most of them were very violent criminals, either being prosecuted for or convicted of some level of, maybe not first degree, but second degree murder, manslaughter. Right now, I know you know him professionally and personally, Brad, just like I do. Our district attorney, Jason Williams, was involved personally in a lot of these prosecutions. So both he, his wife, their children's lives, or I don't want to make it over dramatized, in jeopardy, but they are in some level of danger.
Absolutely.
If people that they have prosecuted who are pending conviction or in jail are out. The victims of these crimes and witnesses who courageously testified, people may not realize, if you are a potential witness in a serious murder case, it is a dangerous it's depending upon that accused person's connection to gang affiliated type violence, like there's no necessary guarantee there won't be a hit on you. So there's a lot of
you're worried about retaliation, and that's what makes this story even worse, which we'll get into the details in a little bit. But it was 7 or 8 hours before they notified or even found out this was going on, to even let the families know, the people in the DA's office or anybody know this was going on. Because usually when something like this happens, they let the DA's office know immediately, the lawyers who prosecuted the case, so they can a little bit be on guard and a little bit more higher alert. And I mean, I would be scared if I was involved with one of these cases and know they had that much lead time to potentially get to me before I found out about it. So we keep going. But yeah, that's a very big concern, is the amount of time it took to report this thing.
Yeah, I still can't believe that what you said, Brad, and I watched the sheriff's press conference. I still don't understand how there were 7.5 hours from the time that they broke out that nobody at the jail had any idea that this actually happened.
It's one hell of a head start to getting out of there.
And I think the excuses, candidly, are just inexcusable. The idea that I think they had one employee walk up and say, "Well, we have 900 cameras." I'm like, okay, what's the point? There's
watching them. Yeah.
With technology today, you don't have to see all 900. There are motion detectors. There's programs which prioritize different screens over others. If there is motion, it would pop it up and show it to the person. As far as I can tell, there's somebody either eating donuts and not watching the camera, or somebody taking a nap and not looking and not doing their job, which happens. I get it, but for 7.5 hours, it's one thing if they missed it and they caught it at 2 a.m., but to not catch it until 8:30 a.m. and it wasn't because they caught it on a camera system. It's because they weren't there when they did the morning cell checks.
Yeah, and I actually have to go back and replay the video, and then that's when we get all the video we see online and on the news stations right now. They had to go find that video to see when it actually happened. So, scary thing, but just to kind of bring people today who haven't been keeping up the story, how this happened. They basically convinced it was a maintenance worker to cut off the water to the cell, and then they removed either the toilet or the sink or something in the cell to climb into basically a crawl space, and then they were able to access the outside through a docking station and run across. So they did have a little help from the inside, or there's somebody they threatened. I think the gentleman they've arrested him for his involvement in it and assisting with them. So they climbed through a pipe chase and got out, got through the loading dock. There was 10 people. They 8:30 a.m. head counts when they discovered it. And I think you might have mentioned, but these are some serious criminals. This is murder, attempted murder, armed robbery. These aren't some shoplifters that got out of this place. So, very, very troubling. As of the time of recording right now, I think they've caught 5 was the last report I saw. 5 of them are still at large. There's monetary awards being offered to catch these people, and law enforcement, across the board's involved in trying to do this manhunt to find these people. So, it's one of the things that obviously we have concerns. This is much different than Hollywood. Hollywood loves prison break movies, as we've talked about. From the Shawshank Redemption to The Fugitive, things like that. We love these things. But in doing a little bit of homework on it, we think this is Hollywood, but prison breaks are a lot more common than you think. I saw one source, he cited it's almost a daily occurrence somewhere in the criminal justice system. Now, most of this time, this is from minimum security facilities. So a lot of these people can almost just walk off, or it's not guarded heavily. It's much rarer in higher security facilities like NOPP in New Orleans, but that's what makes it even more astonishing that this actually happened. The good news I found, though, in the data was that there's over a 90% recapture rate. It's very hard for these guys, once they get out, to stay at large, because anybody that had any affiliations with are going to be under surveillance. So their network of resources and people that can help them is very limited. They got to find food. They have to find shelter. Usually don't have access to cars. So as far as the Justice Department, they do report that it's a very high recapture rate on these individuals once they get out.
Yeah, and I did want to note, Brad, that besides the initial maintenance worker who was arrested for being a part of facilitating their escape, which, by the way, I'm like, that guy's made some really bad decisions, because I don't want to say the Attorney General, Liz Muriel, was chuckling on TV the other night when she said that, but she was kind of like chuckling, like, this guy made some really bad decisions. Like, so the people threatened to shank him. Okay, like, go tell somebody, go work somewhere else, like, go do something. Like, you don't have to then, because they threaten you, let them out. You're, in any event, it was not just him who was arrested. I think his story changed. Initially, as I understand it, when he was investigated, he said some things, and they had evidence that showed that he had facilitated their escape. And then he came with the story, at least the article in the publication I read said that he had changed his story to say that he was threatened. But I think they've arrested 2 other people as well, 2 female staffers at the jail, who are both, one has a $2.5 million bond, another has a $1 million bond posted for them to get released, pending their criminal charges that they have to post. So healthy bonds, and which tells me that there's some level of evidence from the judge who set those bonds, requested by the DA's office, that they were involved. And so there's 3 people arrested altogether who were allegedly involved in it. And yes, as of today, it's the 23rd, so 7 days into the prison break. 5 of the 10 are still at large.
And just from a social media standpoint, I think we mentioned this the other day, there's apparently some polls going around as far as who's going to be the last guy up to get caught. So there's some betting pools.
There's betting odds out there right now. It's like, I think one of them is like a plus 2.
There should be like playing cards for the guys. What's their strengths and weaknesses? What are their likelihood of getting to escape? But in kind of preparing for today, I was reading around. Like I said, it's a common problem. This happens a lot, but a lot of what I'm seeing it's attributed to it's low staffing levels. They're having problems paying good wages to these people that work in these detention centers to get qualified people to work there, and there's overcrowding. All this thing has made it kind of ripe for prison escapes. And one of the guys I was listening to that was talking about, he said this has been exacerbated tenfold over the last few years. So it's a huge problem, and Sheriff Hudson, in her press conference, that's the thing she went to. She said there was many deficiencies in their facilities. She's very concerned about it. The financial officer for the Orleans Parish, she said that the budget's like $68 million. They'd have to get up to about $150 million in budget to get all this stuff fixed. She said the locks alone would cost them $5.2 million. She said they only had 60% of the staffing that they need. So they need 150 more deputies. So, it's easy to point fingers and stuff like that, but people can only do so much with the resources they do have. I was surprised that was that big of a problem for the prison, to be honest with you. I didn't know they had these big of budget issues going on. So it's kind of something as a city we need to kind of look at and think about where we're going to put these dollars. I also pulled some data on the cost of a manhunt, and it is incredibly expensive. You have overtime pay for correctional personnel, other related expenses like travel and everything else. They pulled a couple data points. There was a big one in New York in 2015. It was a 23-day manhunt for 2 escaped prisoners. It costed the state over $1 million a day, totaling over tens of millions of dollars, just to track down these 2 people over 23 days. There was another one in Pennsylvania in 2014. Eric Frein, F-R-E-I-N, Frein. He killed 2 state troopers. It costed $1.3 million a week, totaling $11.7 million to do this manhunt. So at some point, if you look at the cost of the manhunt, and this one in Louisiana is going to be extremely expensive. You're tracking down 10 people, not just 1 or 2 people. Your money's going to be spent somewhere. You got to spend a ton of money trying to track them back down, or you can take that same money and dump it back into the prison system right now and upgrade the system. So really, is this a money issue that we're dealing with as a society and where we're allocating our resources? I know we don't want to spend it now, but we're going to spend 10 times the money if they get out.
Yeah, and I don't know the politics of all this for the sheriff, but I'm going to preface what I'm about to say because everybody's got an opinion, right? Is I don't know how to run a jail or understand security or maintenance for a jail. It's not my specialty or expertise. But I have become to the inescapable conclusion that the sheriff has no fucking idea what she's doing. I mean, I understand that there may be budgetary constraints and things of that nature, but I read a news report this morning that Jason said that her office completely failed to do, and he learned this from Ann Kirkpatrick, our new, well, she's not new anymore, but our police commissioner, who I think is doing a really good job here. He learned from Ann Kirkpatrick that the sheriff failed to conduct a crime scene investigation of the jailbreak. So, I don't care how much money you have or don't have, you can prioritize things that have to be done. And clearly, after a jailbreak happens, you want to conduct a crime scene investigation and collect DNA evidence, fingerprints. None of that's been done.
That seems pretty basic. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, and it's hard to, I've had to watch some of the blame game goes on, right, when something bad happens. But I know for a fact that we chatted about this stat the other day that compared to the prior district attorney's office before Jason took office, there were about 1 trials happening a week by the DA's office in Orleans Parish. Jason's up to 3 a week, and he's trying personally, he's a good trial lawyer, he's trying personally a lot of the capital murder and the high offense crimes. And so he's also worked with the governor and the attorney general's office on getting support from the attorney general's office and helping him prosecute some of the cases. So it's tough for me to stomach the sheriff trying to deflect blame to him on not prosecuting certain jail cases, because as you know and I know as lawyers, in criminal court, and I don't do criminal law, neither do you, and I'm not an expert in criminal law, but I know enough from law school and understanding how this process works that chain of custody of evidence in criminal court is incredibly important. If you can't track who had control of every piece of evidence that you want to try to get in, then it's not going to get in. And so what Jason's point is...
The case is basically made before Jason gets it.
That's right.
Success or failure of the case is built around the evidence, the collection of the evidence, the chain of custody, so you can only deal with the cards you've been dealt.
That's 100% right. And the DA's office only has so much resources. And so, of course, they're going to turn down certain cases that would be referred to them if they don't feel it looking at the evidence that's been collected. Some of it may be missing and they can't take the case, or and or a combination of some of the evidence that gets submitted to them for consideration of presenting the case was spoliated. Either there's failure of chain of custody, it's evidence that wouldn't get into evidence, and they've got to decide, hey, do I divert resources from trying this drug dealer case, from trying this murder case, to try this jailhouse case that the sheriff did not preserve evidence or give us the best case that we could to actually secure a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's just, I look at stuff like small things like this, and I objectively have come to the conclusion that the sheriff has no idea what she's doing, generally speaking, and that may be the reason she suspended her campaign, because she understood she's probably not going to win re-election, but considering that she let 10 people get out of the freaking jail.
And it's a reminder to people out there that are listening, elections have consequences. We've been hearing that a lot the last 4 or 5 years. And this is one of those things, even at the local level, when you're voting for people, you gotta make sure they're competent. We put people in office all the time that really shouldn't be there. And these things have profound effects on society. It has big effects on who's being convicted, who's go free in our society. We've got to be careful with these things. But going back to the resource thing, the sheriff's claiming resource problems. DA's office has resource problems too. Everybody has a limited budget to deal with here.
Yeah.
And they have to allocate it as they see fit in the cases they can actually win and put people behind bars on. They can't be wasted on time that they have a lower chance of winning. So it's a bad situation. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, I think it's probably a resource and a money problem. If we had unlimited resources, we wouldn't be talking about this today. But that's just the way the world works. There's always going to be limited resources. But I think it's something that needs to be looked at. If the detention centers are in that bad a shape and we're having that big of a problem, they have to become a priority. We have to do something with them.
Well, the other side of it too, though, is look, every jail facility, whether it's here in New Orleans or anywhere in the country, right? They probably want more resources than what they have, and so it's like, what are we doing at this level in New Orleans to go and see, like, hey, what technology are cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, other major metropolitan areas, or other metropolitan areas, even if they're small enough, whether it's St. Louis, those types of facilities, what kind of technology are they utilizing to help bridge the gap between like what they believe they may have in deficient manpower and labor to help support security in the facility? Or are we doing that? Who knows? But I think the biggest thing that was like the alarm bell for me in this whole situation is not necessarily, the jailbreak's bad. Right, it's bad.
It's a black eye. It's a black eye for the city, especially how we started the year with a debacle, with the Ballards and Burbage. It's a black eye. We don't want to have these stories coming out of New Orleans.
For sure, but my point is, like, we run a business, like, bad stuff goes wrong all the time, right? Yeah. It's really like the immediate aftermath, and so what I can't escape is that this facility did nothing for 7.5 hours after they get out, and that to me is the worst part, because I suspect heavily, had they followed protocol after they got out, or somebody had alerted somebody within the immediate hour after they got out, that almost 100% of them would have been recaptured by now.
Well, it's the same thing across business that we talk about all the time. Is this a people problem or is this a process problem? Yeah. And this is going to shed a light on the situation. We know we have a problem now. The question is, how is our leadership going to step up to fix it and address it to make sure it doesn't happen again? We got to learn from these things when we fall down. So it's an opportunity. Hopefully all these guys get caught and there's no, other things that happen or anybody gets hurt because of this. But at the same time, we got to prevent it from happening again. If you make the same mistake again after this, then that's a much bigger problem.
So we've still got 5 that are not recaptured. We know the FBI, probably Homeland Security, the U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. Marshals are all now involved. I like to tell people who ask me, I'm like, there's a large TV screen or a wall somewhere at the local FBI facility with a person 24/7 who's watching satellites on every single one of their moms, sisters, aunts, cousins, friends' houses, as well as undercover surveillance, as well as wiretap phones, as well as like every surveillance tool in the...
New Orleans has a couple satellites right now dedicated.
Monitoring any known affiliate, family, anything with the 5 who are still out there. So... where are they, Brian? Where do you think they are, and where do you think the search goes, and what are your odds on how many of them will be recaptured and in what particular time period? Let's kind of chat through that.
I hope if that kind of lead. If I had that kind of lead, I think I'd be already in Mexico somewhere drinking a margarita.
Yeah. You would have Andy Dufresne down to like a beach in Mexico.
Yeah, that's where I would be.
He went further down. He went down to Costa Rica or something.
Yeah, I'd have to be working on my tan. I tan extremely well in the summertime, given my fair complexion. But God, it always surprises me that people get caught. But if you think about it, it's pretty hard to kind of get away unless you're going to live underneath the house for a couple months. Because you have to be out in public. Your face is going to be everywhere. Every known affiliate you have is going to be under surveillance. So it ain't like you can call your grandmama and ask her for some money or in a car. They're going to catch you that way. But like I said, it's over 90%, nearing 100% of recapture rate. So these guys are going to come back at some point. And also, just to add, did you see that they wrote things on the jail wall as they were escaping too? Like
too easy, lol. And I think they put like TO instead of TOO, which was a nice touch.
But bragging about it.
Yeah.
So I assume these same guys will probably be posting on social media at some point saying, "Hey, look where I'm at."
I think for them to successfully get away, they'd have to be like in Argentina, Chile, like a remote country down in Central America, and never contact their family again, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, the one guy, the first one they caught, I think he immediately went to Bourbon Street and got caught in the French Quarter.
Yeah,
so
that was not a good decision.
Probably not a good move.
I mean, I just saw last night that three of them were just like walking down Baronne Street, not far from where I live. They're just like walking down Baronne Street. I don't know if they were all wearing white, so I don't know if they got like a change of clothes or if they were confused and thought it was white linen night.
They've been locked up for quite some time, so they need to get out and stretch their legs a little bit and have a drink.
They would hide for a couple months and be ready for white linen night. They'd have their white on, but
I guess they thought hiding in plain sight was the best way to go.
Well, I'm just like, why'd you go downtown? There's cameras everywhere. Like,
of all places, that's the worst place to be.
I'm plotting my prison escape from that facility, and I'm like, okay, I'm either going to escape into Mid-City, which is a lot of trees, not a ton of cameras, and like make my way towards the lake, try to hitchhike, and I'm
going down the bayou. I'm going to a fishing camp. Y'all not going to find me again.
Down the bayou, okay.
There's no cameras down there.
I think you got to get to the Mexico border, is my 2 cents. You got to Andy Dufresne it, you bust down, you get across the border, and then all bets are off because you can really like hide through Mexico, keep going south on buses and hitchhiking, maybe stop, make some money along the way to help fund the transportation, and then you got to get somewhere where it's as remote as possible. And never contact your family again, but you'll be living a Bolivian lifestyle down there.
You can film the whole thing on social media and get likes and subscribers and monetize the whole trip.
Well, they can't do that because then they can.
These guys, when they wrote on the wall, are dumb enough to do that.
So, do you think that all 5 of them are still here locally? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine they have the resources to get away and get out of the area. To be honest with you. Unless they're going to steal something, and then there's going to be a police report. There's going to be trails. And as soon as you steal something, then they're going to come on and get onto you. So I don't know. I think there's a good chance they're close by. Most of the manhunt stuff I looked into, they're not found that far away from the actual place they escaped from. It's not like the movies where they're halfway across country and what's his name is chasing after you. So they don't get that far.
Yeah, I mean, most of them were not like a banking executive like Andy Dufresne. What they got?
We're not dealing with rocket scientists here. I got a feeling at least 1 or 2 is going to evade escape just because there's so many of them that escape at the same time. I think it's much easier to catch 1 or 2 people when they escape, and everybody's focused on those 2 people and what they look like. I mean, be honest, if they pulled up a picture of a guy of one of those 10, are you going to recognize one of those 10 people right now? It's a little harder because there's so many.
Yeah.
So I think because they escaped en masse, it's a little bit more of a difficult job to catch them.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting you said that, and I agree with you. I thought when they caught the first 5, now they've caught 5 of them, like, well, that's the worst. If you're one of the other 5, you're like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to us. Because the more of us that are caught, the more like target there is on the remaining ones, right? So,
but at the same time, they're putting those 5 they caught's picture up a lot more. So there's so much more media attention on that. It almost provides you cover.
That's a fair point. It's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, we're joking about a lot of it, but it's not a joking matter. I mean, it's really serious.
And it's costing us as a taxpayer a crap load of money every day, I guarantee you. I can't wait to see the data. I'm going to keep an eye out to look for it. But if it was costing $1 million a day to track down 1 person a day, imagine what it's costing to track down 10 people a day.
A lot. And we haven't even mentioned the state. I mean, I know the Department of Corrections is now involved at the local level. The governor's involved, the attorney general's involved, and I definitely saw. I think it was on Monday. I'm not sure who is the federal court judge who's actually overseeing the consent decree as it relates to the prison. I think it's different than Judge Morgan, because I believe Judge Morgan is overseeing the consent decree on the NOPD. But there was a private, first thing Monday morning, like private court conference with the attorney general, all the relevant parties in Orleans, and other parties federally to discuss the situation and what's happening there. So it does give me some reassurance, at least, that there will be federal and state oversight of what's happening here, because I've kind of lost confidence in the sheriff, if I'm going to be honest.
Yep.
So there is going to be federal and state oversight on that facility, and obviously heavily federally involved, along working with the Louisiana State Police to locate and catch the remaining 5.
And in most situations when we have things like this happen, whether it's a hurricane that we're unprepared for or whatever, our systems do get better afterwards. People are more aware of it. It becomes a priority, and therefore things get fixed. So it's an unfortunate situation that it happened, but I do have some optimism that it will be much better now moving forward as far as our prison system.
Yep. Well, Brad, any other comments that you have on the jailbreak before we close?
That's it. I'm just going to jailbreak from here. It's Friday, so this is my last act of the day. Friday
before Memorial Day. That's where I'm wearing a blue plate mayonnaise shirt. I just joked earlier, I'm a cheap date. I got it for free at Hogs for the Cause. A great shirt. Thank you, Blue Plate Mayonnaise. That's all it takes for me to endorse your company. And anywho, it's been fun talking about the escapees with you, Brad, and thank you all for listening along. We did joke a lot, but hopefully it's a serious thing for a lot of families and people in our community, so hopefully they are apprehended and brought back into the facility soon. We hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and thank you all for listening along. This has been another great episode of the Overruled podcast, brought to you by the Scott McNair Law Firm. Take care, and talk to y'all later.
Y'all take care. Bye.
Scott McNair, injury attorneys, we fight for the win.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.